Here's an endgame study by Botwinick. Here it's white to move, but it doesn't really matter. Black can have their way and win this by either case. Any pawn move here, for instance, would be really bad since black instantly gets to a nice square here and, well, this kind of stuff black pushes. Again, taking the pawn would be a mistake. Even though white would lose the pawn, gets this kind of opposition and holds since the pawn is on black side of the camp. But either pawn push. Taking is a mistake and draw, but black just pushes. On in this case, well, black pushes to f4 and then wins both these pawns. King f3 is kind of transposed to the king f1, king g1 lines. I'm not gonna look at those. King g f1 is interesting. And black should come here, king d3. Can't really push the pawns before gets the king to an ideal situation. Now white has few options. Let's look at the king e1s to first. At this moment, black can push f4. And for instance, if you take, black takes, f3 you just lose. And here it would be a loss even with the black to move, but it's white to move, so black promotes easily. g4 is a after king d1, well, black just pushes the f3 and then pushes the white king off the pawn and again gets through easily. g4 is interesting, giving black a chance to mess this up with f3. And then king d1 actually draws. Well, here we don't make any progress, but looks like black can go and pick this guy up. But that's the bait, because white can follow here, and after the capture, come to king e3, and now black king can't keep this protected, so white just captures, and this is an easy draw. But instead of f3, black should play king c2, and now after king e2, king c1. And now this is too slow. Black just comes somewhere, well, pushes the pawn, and black pawn is going to be much faster than white's. Knight pawn is not going to cut it. And instead, here if white tries to hold on, now we can play f3, and there is no ways forward for white king. We just push. And pick up the pawn and promote again easily. And after here, after f4, well, again, f3 is good. Then we go pick up the pawns. But after king f1, king d3, if white actually tries to stay inside here, let's say king g2, black should not come to king e2, because after king g1, well, pushing the pawn here, white just takes, and comes to king g2. And now black should not do f3 and actually lose this game, because he has to yield this pawn away, and now white's the winner. Well, here black should just bail out to a draw. And here just white, this is now again way too early to push this. White wins the pawn. Until this pawn doesn't do anything, since now white just can shuffle between these squares and there's no real tries to win. So instead here, king g2, black wants to come to get that position with a better move order. King d2. Now if you go king f1, king d1 forces the way in. Say king g2, king e1. And this is a bad place for white, because now he has to kind of yield. If you go here, g4, and black wins both pawns. And if white pushes the pawn here, f4, and again, black's just much faster and wins easily. So here, white tries king g1, to stay in. But this is the right moment. Now black can't improve the king anymore. F4. Now the difference is that, well, king g2, king e2. And now taking, pushing the pawn, king e3, black wins this. And when the pawn is on white side of the board, this doesn't matter who to move, while black is just gonna win, since he's already in the key squares here. But for instance, this, and then pawn goes through. And yeah, well, any g4 doesn't really make sense, since king e1. Now you go here, it's the same. We go king f1. And if king g1, then f3, and white has to give up the pawn. And pawn just walks through. Yeah, and there's nothing else. This is just a easy deal. f3, and then black picks up the pawn and wins the game. Yeah, I don't think there's any other tries for white to defend this. While black can always force his way to get somehow this position where both kings are on here, and that is the right moment to push. And anything else is just worse for white. Much easier for black to win. Alright, until next time. Bye bye.